Good evening, and you're very welcome to episode 30 of season 5 here of the League of Ireland Women's podcast on finalwhistle.ie with myself, Breffney Early, and of course, as always, the ever diligent Aaron Clark has been casting his eye over all things League of Ireland Women over the weekend. We're going to start, though, with some really sad news for the world of women's football. And that, of course, is the passing over the weekend of Matt Beard, formerly the Liverpool manager. He's been at other clubs too, but mostly associated with 2 terms at Liverpool, who very, very sadly passed away over the weekend. And I suppose, Aaron, we know the kind of the pressures and stress that comes with this sport, and I suppose just the dealing with that sort of kind of side of the game and the successes and the lows. And I suppose it's just really, really sad news. And there's been such a huge outpouring of support for his family and from everybody involved with the Liverpool family and the women's football family in general. Your thoughts on the events over the weekend?
It's one of them that I'm sort of, you find it hard to nearly even at times put it into words. Still so young at 47, so much life left to live. Like we've seen a couple of high-profile sports people in the UK over the last couple of weeks. Like anybody who knows me knows I'm a massive boxing fan. With seeing Ricky Hatton the week before. It's difficult. It's one of them that you never like to see. The crying of outpouring on social media of emotion towards him just sort of showed the character of the man and what Matt Beard meant to so many. He's definitely left a lasting legacy in women's football. Like even if you sort of look back to his first term with Liverpool, he'd have left the coaching job in Chelsea. He was working as an estate agent. Sort of took that opportunity to go with Liverpool that first time when they won the league the first at that time, and built up a real good program at Liverpool when women's football was really only starting to flourish in England at that stage. Like, to do that and then to go back with them and have some really good days with them again. Like, even if you look at it from an Irish viewpoint alone, he would have been the manager who would have brought Courtney Brosnan to West Ham. He would have been the manager to bring Leanne Kiernan to West Ham again. Would have brought Leanne to Liverpool as well. Would have made Niamh Fahey Liverpool captain. And when you just read all the tweets and all the stuff that's sort of being said about him, it sort of talks about the person that he was. And I have friends who know him, and when the message come through on Saturday, at the weekend, I was sort of a bit numb, being like, what, and it's difficult. And the one thing it sort of highlights, and we've seen even from whether it be some League of Ireland's outlets and sort of social media campaigns, and we've seen from the UK, like we've seen with Norwich, we've seen Brighton put out superb videos on mental health and actually having a conversation with people. It's not always easy, and as much as people say, have a chat with somebody, it's never just as simple as for people sometimes have that little bit of pride. And
it's horrific. And I suppose as someone who's dealt with mental health issues myself over the years, enough to get me on a bicycle around the world, to kind of spread awareness of it. It always hits home when you hear it, particularly someone who's you can kind of see elements of your own life through. So it's sad to see how things have worked out for Matt and his family over the last couple of days. But I suppose it's just one of those things. If you need help,
I remember.
Well, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think if you need help and if you want help, there are people out there. Go ask for it. There's plenty of organizations in the country, or if you're watching this abroad, just Google mental health services. You will find someone. There are people there who care. There's plenty of people who will help you. Go. Apologies to anyone who might be triggered by this, but go check it out and go talk to somebody about it. Final thoughts, Aaron?
I remember a story a friend told me of him once where they were getting married, and he'd sent money for them to get a drink. And that was the sort of man he was. He was a gentleman, and some people will be triggered by it. But if I was to say anything to anybody, it's if you are suffering, don't be afraid to speak to somebody, even if it's a friend, a close one.
And it's perfectly normal and fixable. Go do try and take action rather than letting things fester as you go. But let's get back to the football. It is a football podcast after all. Very hard to talk about football when stuff like this is in the news, but we will get on with it. Plenty to talk about today. The FAI back in the news. Some really positive stuff, thankfully, to talk about from the FAI's point of view, with a whole new league structure for the underage / reserves / new first team element. 10 new teams effectively coming into the league, although no actual new teams, just a regrading of how that's going to work. Under 19 becomes under 20, with 10 of those teams, first teams, basically been open to all age groups, which is exciting for those teams. So congratulations to the 10 teams we'll be seeing with first teams in that grade next year. We'll also be looking at some big announcements from the FAI in terms of 2 new programs that they have completed and awarded certification for. The Changemakers program. About 9 or 10 women have come through that and will add their new skills to the development of women's football across the country, and then about a dozen or so involved in the mentoring coaching skills program. A lot of familiar names that we'd know from both within the Abbottstown staff and some of the committee members and people around the game for a long time. Some retired referees in there as well. So we're going to be chatting about that very briefly later on in the show, and I suppose we'll have to be talking about the government situation. Aaron, we have the FAI not quite sure whether they're going to go to the committee meeting on Wednesday or not. There's been a bit of consternation. We talked about it briefly on last week's show. Will Eileen Gleeson attend? Garth Marr, also a member of the media team for the women's full-time member staff of the FAI, has been requested as well. We'll talk about whether that's right or wrong from the government to get involved to that level. I personally think government top-level stuff, talk away, but the actual operations of what happens within the FAI, not necessarily a government. I think that's close to overreach from the government. I think it could cause problems if it went to UEFA. It's also a bit messy. You have a member of staff who's currently taking a legal case against her employer, and you're asking her to come in and speak to the government on behalf of that employer. It's all just a little bit too tight for my liking. We will chat about that later in the show. Let's talk football. We've had some really exciting games this weekend. We've had it's the weekend underdog essentially across the league. Some really impressive performances both collectively and individually across the league. We also have the small matter of Boh's victory down in Wexford last week, and
the funny thing is, right, this week of the underdogs, it's nearly becoming a regular team. It's just great when you can talk about a lower team in the league putting up a big performance against a good team. You know, it's really it makes the show so much easier because we're not having to come in and be like one team is getting battered out the gate. It's great when you can do this. And the one comment that was to make over the weekend for me was Shels on Treaty was probably the game of the season that I've watched live, and it was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I was really impressed by a couple of players this week as well. We'll get into that for each of the games. Let's get last week's stuff out of the box early. Athlone in Europe, we kind of preempted this last week. They played a bit of a weekend side to give girls, I suppose, the opportunity to play in Europe and have that experience. Didn't displace themselves, given that they were playing effectively a kind of half a B team in places. Really impressive performance from them, but still, unfortunately, from an Athlone point of view, same scoreline, 3-0 beaten at home. They'll be happy enough when they look back at the games in total, though.
Yeah, I will just start off with I'll get the negative out of the way. Poor attendance. I thought the attendance would be so much better at that game, especially considering the way they were pushing the game. They were sort of talking about the tickets to go. I don't know whether the case of people just decided if they have a ticket, they weren't going to attend just because of the scoreline. I sort of alluded last week on the show that they'd have to do this somewhere in the sense of where do they sort of pick and choose the rest players. And I think we got our answer with the fact that they prioritised the league game against the other Waves over the game against Glasgow. Considering they were 3-0 down, I don't necessarily blame them. You can't really expect Athlone to play the same team 3 games in 7 days. Even you can't really expect them to do that and sort of go out full pelt. It's not really possible. And considering they played as well before they played Glasgow, so it's been quite a real. I don't think they did disgrace themselves. It's also nice to see Irish on the score sheet as well, with Emily Murphy scoring for Glasgow, first time playing back and playing a competitive game in Ireland for herself, considering since she left Shels. So good for Emily. But now I don't think Athlone were disgraceful. I think there's definitely clear evidence of the standard of the professionalism between a professional or half professional Irish team compared to a professional Glasgow team, and it's where we need to aim to get to. Listen, it was a Athlone were decent enough over the two legs, but just Glasgow just had that bit of quality for me.
Yeah, 100%. Bows in action in a kind of refixed league game down in Wexford. Decent
Gave
performance.
them no hope.
Great result.
Them no hope last week. Great result. Wearing the wibbly wobbly jerseys as well.
I love that jersey.
Do you know what? I actually wouldn't mind just buying them just to actually have it there.
I think it's only available in female sizes. I think I did look at it.
I wouldn't even buy it. I wouldn't even buy it for that. I'd nearly buy it just to actually, and ask the players to sign and just to have it there, because I think it's a really well, I said at the start I didn't like it, but it's really, really growing on me. We're going to talk about this girl a little bit more later on tonight. Lovely finish from Hannah O'Brien for the first goal. Ellen's penalty is a clear penalty all day long. You just can't let Ellen twist and turn like that. Ellen's just Ellen. Then for Bows, Leah Glenna finished as well, and good to see Katie Malone get on the score sheet, especially considering she hasn't played a lot of football this season due to injury, and comfortable enough win in the end for Bows. First half probably even enough. Second half a little bit controlled a little bit more, and I think it was a really, really, really good win for Bows, especially coming off the back of the cup game where I sort of thought the emotions, the spike of adrenaline would probably have been gone, and it'd have been difficult for to get a performance again in this game. Alban Heist has sort of done a little bit of what John Sullivan had to do on Wednesday, made some changes as well, and then players sort of stood up and said, yes, I want to be counted. Interesting, Katie McCarron wasn't on the bench for this game or wasn't on the bench for Saturday, so maybe they realise bringing her on in the cup game probably was that little bit too early.
Yeah, potentially. If we fast forward to this weekend, though, of course, full slate of games for the first time in a long time that I can remember, where there hasn't been games moved around to accommodate Athlone's European adventure. Some really impressive performances. Let's maybe start at the game you liked the most, Shels and Treaty. Shels needed to win. We're playing before Athlone, had a chance to go top of the table, but Treaty have been that kind of pernickety performance every week where you're either going to get a really, really good performance from them or they're going to be terrible. This was one of the better ones.
They answered your question last week. And when you said will their season just tail away? I think that was an answer to the sort of performance that they put in. And it would have been very easy for them just to tail away at that stage and sort of ride off into the sunset. But the one note I made from this game is, how did it finish 2-0? There was that many chances on both sides. I think Mackenzie Anthony and Madeline Robbins both have to score early on. Good to see Rowan McLaughlin get her first goal since the second game of the season when she scored the penalty in Waterford. It's good to see her back playing. As I said you off air, it's the first time herself, Aoibheann Clancy and Alex Cavan have started a game together all season. That's that midfield trio that everybody wanted to see, and it was the first time they got that opportunity. It was a really, really enjoyable game. I think when you look at the goal from Roma, just the corner wasn't properly cleared. It comes back in. Mackenzie Anthony headed it on, and Roma McLaughlin with a header. You don't often see Roma score many headers, and I think even the second goal from Mackenzie Anthony, when Sean Russell sort of looks back at it, I don't think there's anything they can do. When Lisa Toomey sort of makes a save and it comes off her back foot, you can't really do anything in that stage. But I think when it comes to Treaty, the biggest issue for them is in these sort of games, when you get a chance, you have to take it. And I think that's the difference. I think I was speaking to Owen Wirren even after the game, and he was sort of saying that these are the sort of games that Shels can perform really well in when they go against teams who have really good energy and because they're both going at it.
Yeah,
and it was such an enjoyable game to watch. The only downside on it is obviously we don't know the full extent of Alex Kavanagh's injury after he was struck with it from a ball from close range. If she's out of Athlone the weekend, it'll be a massive, massive loss at this stage for them. But I really, really enjoyed it.
I think if she's unavailable for the rest of the season, potentially if she was to have a broken bone or something in her hand, I think Shell's title ambitions are hanging on by a thread if that's the case. But they do have the players to pull it off, but it's going to be a big, big ask.
I think the performance they put in on Saturday was the sort of performance they needed going into a game like that, because we've seen even when they went to lost to Galway. Granted, they beat Sligo the week before, where it was at times a bit too easy for them. Whereas they knew they needed Treaty was a difficult game. Treaty's been difficult for a lot of teams, and we even seen what they've done with Athlone, taking the point off Athlone as well. So I think it's a really, really good game for them to win. But the only Michelle's point is they need to back that performance up with a similar type performance. And I've said it to you here a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say it again. I think Shels need a massive, massive crowd at this game. I think there was 400, 300 odd at this game on Saturday. I think realistically Shels need well over 1,000 in Talca Park on Saturday afternoon, and they need to be sort of the way they need to call themselves, the ultras behind the goal, where they need to be as boisterous. They need to be sort of raring the opposition on, trying to get in the opposition's head. I think Shels will need absolutely everything they can, and I think Shels will need a 10 out of 10, a 9, 10 out of 10 performance to win the game on Saturday. But are they capable? Absolutely, and it just sets up a mouthwater.
Yeah, because I suppose Saturday's game against Athlone is huge. They can't necessarily win the league, but they can definitely lose the league, if not mathematically, but pretty much mathematically, if they get beat by Athlone at the weekend. So
if they get beat by Athlone, that'll put Athlone a point clear.
4 points clear with a game in hand. So yeah, it's I think that's right.
Yeah, 4 points clear with the game in hand, and the problem is now you look that you're talking they've 2 left, where Athlone will have 3 left. Athlone will play Cork on the midweek, where if Athlone win against Shels and Athlone beat Cork, they're champions before they even come to Dublin to play Peamount.
Yeah, no, it's a must win for the girls in Shels if they want to keep their ambitions alive this weekend. For me, one moment of controversy, and I don't think it was that bad, but it was the second goal looked borderline offside to me. I think she's probably just on. I just think she's maybe just on, but it's close.
It's very close. It's very close. It's one of them that, unfortunately, when you've only got, if we'd had TG Carr, we might have been able to have a couple of looks at it from a different angle. But with the LOI TV, it's with that one angle, it's hard to fully say. And even from sitting in the press box, it was close.
Yeah, I think we might stick with the theme of we'd like to see a different angle on that. We'll go down to Waterford and Wexford. We'll talk about a goal line clearance in a few moments. But how good was Ellen Molloy's first goal in this? This is just a stellar performance from Wexford. But Waterford, to be fair, never gave up. And I was super impressed with young Izzy Walsh. I text you about her after about an hour. And then literally 5-6 minutes later, she has the ball in the back of the net where she won the ball. Took on the keeper, went round her and slotted it home. Fabulous finish for such a young player in the league with so little experience at this level. One to watch?
Yes, absolutely. I will be a little bit critical of the goal. I think she made the goal so much harder for herself. I think she could have scored it so much easier. And it was just the way, when she's going around the keeper, you're sort of like, don't go too wide. Don't go too wide. And then when she goes around Maria Sullivan, it's like, it's really that. And I wouldn't mind, the defender nearly got back with how long it went. But like, listen, it was a great finish. It was a show of confidence to sort of do that from a youngster. And like, I'll talk about Wexford down in a minute, but if the goal line clearance goes in, well, even before that goal, if Erin O'Brien scores that opportunity that she has, even before Walsh scores, it could be a completely different game. And then when they have the ball cleared off the line, like, what a clearance. What a clearance off the line.
For me, I thought, just before we leave the goal and Izzy Walsh's performance, before she scored the goal, about 5-6 minutes beforehand, she went on a blistering run down the left-hand side. I can't quite remember which player she took on, but it was an experienced player, and she just left her for dust. Couldn't live with her at all. And I just thought, wow, there's a player we need to look at. It didn't actually see the goal in real time on the day because I'd switched to a different game, but I texted you and said, we need to talk about this girl next week. She's really impressed. I think she was with the 17s, and I think she's a young 17, so I'm not even quite sure if she's overage for the 17s next year. Like she's 15 or 16 potentially. Not quite sure. So apologies if I'm doing her a disservice. She's actually a bit older than that, but either way, she's young. She's eager to get in, and she's exciting. And I just thought she had a bit of confidence and a lack of fear that we see maybe in some of the older players. I was just really, really impressed with her.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nearly like
you saw that run in the highlights, by the way, because I was talking about it to you, and you're like going, "What are you talking about?" And I actually went back and I couldn't quite find it, but Yeah.
Do you know what she reminds me of? The sort of the moment that Hallie Harcourt had for Shels, in the sense of, I don't care. That sort of moment, and that's the attitude we're seeing. We're seeing with the likes of even like Madison McGuan is a prime example. Madison McGuan in a game like that against Shels just goes and like, I don't care. I'm going to go play football. I'm going to go do what I enjoy. And these younger kids are just having that much fun. And I think it's great for the likes of Waterford. It's great to see and the thing about it is, they're only, as time goes, they're only going to have more and more of these sort of kids coming through, and it'll help with the development. But let's go back to Wexford.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Ellen. She's done that a couple of times. She had another where Maeve Williams saved it, where she just cuts it. You can't let Ellen cut in like that on the left foot, and it's just top corner. It's just Ellen, and that's sort of what we become to synonymous with Ellen. But if I'm gonna sort of be a bit critical of Ellen, I think when you look back at this game, Ellen probably should have 3 or 4 goals at least. I think that's probably the one thing she'll look back at and be like, I probably should have had more. So many chances early on. If you're a Waterford fan, I think you'll ask yourself a serious question in why is Lolly Collins scoring the second goal at the back post? Yeah. How is the defender getting so far up in that sort of sense? I think that's one that, and especially from that sort of angle, you don't expect Lolly Collins to score from that sort of angle. But superb win for good win for Wexford to bounce back. I think Wexford were very, very good in the first 50 odd minutes, and then as the game grew on, Waterford just got into that a little bit more. And I really think if Waterford could have taken one of them with a chance that they had, they might have got that draw. But I gotta ask you the question, okay? Because I've no clue how to answer this question. Goal, yes or no? Was it over the line?
I don't know. It kind of looks like it might have been. I don't think it's going to affect either team's season overly, whether it's a draw or whether it's a win in that game. But I think potentially, but I think the athleticism from Anna Duan, she's a new recruit from the States, very impressive to get her body in a position to clear that ball. It makes up for she fell asleep a bit for the goal. So it makes up for that kind of mistake. It more than makes up for that. It was impressive. It was impressive.
Yeah,
to be able to clear the ball at about 5 or 6 feet off the ground. I know I'm definitely not doing it, and I don't think there's too many on the pitch would have been able to get their leg in that position.
I'm not doing it either. Even with a trampoline, we're not doing it.
Yeah, 100%. I'd end up in the back of the net with the ball and everything. Haven't got nowhere near it. But it's no, I think to go back to Ellen Molloy, you mentioned that she could have had 5 or 6, and she probably could have. Maeve Williams made a couple of decent saves. One of probably 3 or 4, if not 5, really impressive goalkeeper performances this year. We're going to talk about Aoibheann in a couple of minutes because she was just stellar. But overall, across the league, we saw some really, really impressive goalkeeping performances. It's been a trademark of the year, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, even I sort of said to you before we started the show, and apologies for people listening when they're going to say this already, but I'm sort of having conversations with people around Team of the Year sort of stuff at this stage, and we mentioned goalkeeper. Like there's a lot of outfield players that are sort of picking themselves. I turned around to you and said goalkeeper, and we're like, there's that many different options that we're like, okay, and it's great because normally when you see sort of a team top of the league or a team second in the league not conceding a lot of goals, are saying boom, straight on. Like, even I had a conversation on Saturday about this, and it's like, you look at Athlone, you look at when Shels weren't conceding goals all them times, it was more of a case of the rock solid defense that it wasn't getting near them, whereas we're seeing goalkeepers having to put in big performances. And for me, that's probably been one of the highlights of the last couple of years, is the fact of the level of goalkeeping has gone up so much compared to where it was. And it makes a better product. It makes everything better. Like, even there was one save that Toomey made in the second half of the Shels game where it looked as though she was dead and buried, beaten, and all of a sudden gets a little back pedal and flicks the hand over. And I think goalkeepers it's more in this league now. I think it's going to be a case of, rather than goalkeepers costing you points, we're starting to see goalkeepers starting to win you points.
That was my reference to you, was there's only one goalkeeper, in my opinion, who has actually won points for her team this year. For me, I don't think picking the Team of the Year goalkeeper is as hard as you might think it is. I think there's one standout. Now, if I had to pick a substitute, it could be 6 different girls. I think there's been some unbelievable performances. Summer Lawless in parts has been phenomenal for Shamrock Rovers. She made one triple save a week or two ago that was just out of this world good. Are all of these girls liable to make a little bit of a mess up? Absolutely. But what we're seeing week in, week out, the consistency of Aoibheann was one of the best performances over 90 minutes this weekend, in my opinion. I thought she pulled off some amazing saves from close range, from distance. She was just on top of everything. She ended up on the losing side, unfortunately, for her and for DLR, but I think she just reeled back the years. It was like watching her 10 years ago when she was like in Ireland squads every single time. Just super impressive with her. But for me, Bonnie McKiernan,
what I was nearly thinking?
Bonnie McKiernan's performance when Sligo Rovers drew against Shamrock Rovers, it was like somebody going out and scoring 7 or 8 goals. That's the
when they played Peamount, or when they beat Peamount United. In
the fact that we can even pick 3 or 4 games probably where she has been worth points to her team, literally.
When do we ever see a goalkeeper nominated for things like Player of the Month?
Yeah, it rarely happens. I had her in team of the week. I think I had her 1 to 11 one week, and she was just class that week. So I think she wins it. But there's like 5 or 6 girls just absolutely breathing down her neck for that position. Let's go to Bonnie McKiernan. Unfortunately for them, started well, 1-0 up early on in that game. Miranda Vanny made a great burst down the left hand side. Had an effort. Rebounded back to Emma Hansbury, who made absolutely no mistake. 1-0 up and well worth it, I think it's fair to say. But just I suppose the fitness and the bit of experience just play it out for Peamount, and they turned it around 1-4-1. Unfortunately for Sligo, local-ish girl, Ceola Bergin with 2 assists, both for Dolan. So she provided 2 assists for that particular game. Wasn't to be for Sligo. They ran out 4-1 defeat for Peamount. Ruby Gallagher, what a finish for the 4th though.
What a hit. Interesting.
Who even tries that from that's the youth and the fearlessness. Who even in the right mind tries that from that angle? Like,
didn't she try it in Cork as well?
I can't remember now.
Earlier in the season, she did she not do the same thing in Cork as well?
Probably, yeah. She's been impressive.
But that was just ridiculous.
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous over here.
Great
and you're sort of thinking, you're looking at it, and I'm listening to Max Thompson and Albert Burley started talking about she's gonna pass it. Not a hope, but she scored a banger, from Cork against Cork, from distance. Interesting enough, right? I'm gonna read you out something. So if you look here for Ruby Gallagher, right? He has played 14 minutes on Saturday. He played a minute against Shamrock Rovers. He played a minute against Bowls. He played 78 minutes in an All-Ireland Cup quarter-final. In the league, she's barely played league football. And if you add up her goals per minute right now in terms of things, she's probably got a decent enough goals per minute.
I'm making 3 goals in 418 minutes this season across all competitions. So that's what every 139 or so,
which isn't bad at all.
Every game and a half, like it's impressive, yeah. But she's she's a good, exciting young player as well. We're seeing a lot of these players kind of breaking through, doing really, really well in the under-19s division, which again, that's going to be so exciting when that kicks off next year. We'll talk about that shortly. But for me, I think we're seeing the caliber and the youngsters. They're just better technically because of the experience they've had, the access to better facilities, better coaching at an earlier age, better competition in terms of they're playing against players at their own level or higher week in, week out for the last 3 or 4 years. Like these girls playing under 19 now, they've been in these academies since they were 15, 16. So we're seeing the results of that.
Some clubs even younger.
Yeah. Because obviously you got like the Shels and Peamount who have these, and others who have these development squads the whole way up from single digit ages. So no, it's really exciting to see the youngsters coming through, and this league is not going to be recognizable in a couple of years. With the men's, we look at the difference between the men's when we cross the channel, and we look at the standards in terms of facilities, money, and the visibility of players when they go across. it's a long-standing joke of the magic airplane to bring you to England gets you ready for international football in about 15 minutes. But with the girls, we need to make sure we don't fall into that trap, because the standard here is not that different to definitely the championship and absolutely tier 3 and 4, where we've seen some players go to in the last few years. Like, we lost Gemma McGuinness, she went to tier 4, and the league lost Gemma McGuinness, but Casey Howe went to, I think, tier 3, as did Jessica Hess.
When Howe went to tier 3, they were pumping money in at that stage. Forest.
But it
Forest
is.
You're talking about McGuinness. McGuinness is still playing in tier 3, and now you're talking Jessica Hennessy's gone there as well with Bournemouth. Granted, they've started the season off quite well, but you're right, and that's the sort of thing where it's, can we keep these players? Can we attract these players? Like, even chatting to managers, chatting to clubs, like even the sort of costs within the league, like these all sort of things are going up. You just have a concern. It's just make sure that clubs can do things that they can financially do within a viable process, that they're not going to just throw a lot of money that they don't necessarily have, and then all of a sudden we see clubs losing money to where clubs potentially drop out. Yes, things are going to expand, costs are still continuing to go up, but clubs need to be careful. Clubs need to be sort of safe in this thing. In terms of this game, I do want to say there was one keeper error. I think Ciara Glacken probably for the first goal, when she goes with her feet at that way. I think when Devaney threw, probably could have pushed it around the corner with her hands there, and probably prevents that goal. But Emma Hansby took it well. I don't think Mary Phillips should be losing that ball on the halfway line. Amelia finished well, but like the second half was all Peamount.
I did like Amelia's finish, and I saw that live on LOI TV the other day, when because it looked like Sligo were kind of in a really good place, and then Peamount just switched it on. Lovely ball out to her, and a little touch in, and she just dinked it past McKiernan and really gave her no chance. But it's great to see these teams competing. That a team that's struggling, whether it's Sligo or Waterford, or even Treaty or DLR, not Treaty, but DLR down the bottom of the table. Like, if you think about it, they played 3 teams who have been in the title challenge for the last couple of seasons, in terms of Peamount, Wexford, and Shels, and the aggregate score was what, 3-8? Like, we'd have seen that 5-goal difference in each of those games 4 years ago.
There was a time where Peamount United beat, I think it was an old UCD Waves at that stage, or UCD Waves would have beaten them, and you're just talking games that have finished at that scoreline itself in one game. And for me, the one concern,
Peamount beat Sligo 6-0 in their first game. It got overturned because of the whole Aaron McLaughlin situation, but
3 points in there, nearly cost the league.
Yeah, it did cost them the league, I think, in the end that season. But no, that's the reality, is that the gaps have closed, and it's down to these youngsters coming through. Like, you look at all those teams, Waterford, some really exciting young players. We've talked about Sligo players on here for seasons about them coming through. Really, really impressive young ones. Kiva Flynn at the back. There's plenty more that we have mentioned, and the same with DLR. Like, Michelle Doonan for me has been a bit of a revelation this year. Has she got enough goals? No, but she's playing in a side that really isn't creating chances. So
but that's the sort of thing where we said at the start of the year she had to do that. She sort of
she's done all right.
She sort of took that on a little bit more. Like, and for me, like, you even see when Peamount are able to bring back in Ellen Molloy midway through the season, what difference that's made to Peamount has been astronomical. Although it did come off injured in the first half. I will say this though, Alan Dolan getting back to form for Peamount has been superb, and like, I think when Peamount hit that flow, Peamount are still that Peamount of old, but they don't necessarily hit the flow as much as they used to, but they're still quality.
Yeah, don't forget, Sive Doyle back this year is as good as new signing. She barely played last year, and such a signing. Like, she's been player of the year in the league before. Like, it's like Peamount haven't gone away. Like, are they going to struggle? We've talked about this. It's taken longer than maybe I expected them to fall off the title challenge. And you look at the underage academy, you'd worry for them in terms of the results they're getting in the underage.
How do you think this new under-23 system Does it benefit Peamount? Does it hinder Peamount?
Let's have that discussion all together, right? Let's have that discussion all together. But I want you to ask that question again in about 10 minutes.
It's just a question that's come to me. It's just a question that comes to me. I'll actually get it, but it's an interesting question.
We'll talk about it later on. Let's go Shels and Bows. It's not Shels, Shamrock Rovers and Bows. Of course, traditionally the Dublin Derby in the League of Ireland has these two sides in it. Tala Stadium, 2-0 up at half-time. Rovers looked to be fairly dominant in that game. And the second half, it was just complete opposite. Bows probably should have won the game in the end. 2-2 it finished. Some impressive, we mentioned at the top of the show, some impressive performances from Summer Lawless in particular. We talked about off air. We were both impressed with her. She won't want to watch the build up to the first goal again. But overall, I thought she was decent. She seemed on top of everything else.
So let's start at the starts. I'm glad to see that they've corrected the first goal back to Anna Butler. They had initially put it down as an own goal. I think it was on target. I don't think Rachel Kelly can do anything about it, my governor. But like, even you look at that Rovers team, you're sort of seeing Maria Reynolds. I don't think she was fit because by the sounds of things, she had a pair of tracksuit bottoms on during the war. Jamie Thompson on the bench. They made quite a few changes. Emily Corbin. You're sort of thinking, okay, Rovers, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, go 1-0 up, then get the second goal before half-time. It's just two kids having fun with Butler and O'Reilly. It was a superb finish from O'Reilly. Great build-up, great lead-up. But the only thing is, for me, is this game should be dead and buried after 50 minutes when Anna Butler has that chance, has to find the net. If she finds the net, there's no going back there. The one thing I took from the second half, and I think you're right in the sense of it was all Rovers first half, all ball second half. Hannah O'Brien, when I'm Stephanie Zamber looking back at this game, the one question I'm going to ask is, how have so many times did Hannah O'Brien find herself in acres of space on Bo's right-hand side, and just with so much room? I agree with you for the first goal. I think Lawless's punch is probably not great, but then again, I don't necessarily think it's the ultimate outcome in terms of the goal, because I would also ask, how does Lisa Murphy get two bites at the cherry in that situation? The sort of the first effort is blocked and then she gets it back. I think you're right in what you're saying in the sense of the chances that Bo's had laid on, especially when they go 2-all. Anna Healy has to score that effort she has when she's through on goal. I think looking back at it, a point is probably a fair result on the overall game. But if you're going by the way Bo's come back in the second half, it's probably 2 points drop for Bo's with the chances they had laid on. But for Rovers, it's concerning that it's another second half where they necessarily don't see a game out, or they don't sort of go over the line. But as I said to you last week, and I stand by it, and it's not because we don't know who the manager is, and I know you're more friendly with it than I am, but I think you could put most managers in there and think that the squad just isn't strong enough for Rovers. And the difference with the Bow squad is, like, you look at the sort of players that Bows have coming off the bench. They bring in Katie Malone, Savannah Kane, who played a lovely ball for the second goal. Hannah O'Brien is probably in the form of her life, and young Erin Gockert. They're bringing on quality players. Bows are, and I think that's the difference with the sides at the minute.
Let's talk Galway and Cork. Unfortunately, no highlights from this, but we have taken a look back over the game. 5-0, very little to be really said about this. Ceola Bergin on form again. Suspicious penalty for one of the goals. Not quite sure what sport the Cork City player, we won't name her, but she knows who she is. We're not quite suspicious, a bit suspicious about how that penalty happened. It was more like something you'd see in Street Fighter, as far as I could see. But no card, but a penalty. 5-0 defeat for Cork. It's just really going from bad to worse for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of them that you're talking, get this season over ASAP. Granted, they did have the draw a couple of weeks ago with the LOIWomen, but like, if you just look at even back in the form card, like, they haven't won a game since the 12th of April. They won the 15th of March and the 12th of April. That's all they've won this season. They're tailing away at the bottom. Like, even now, you're looking at it. I can't even see if you ask the question, where can they get a point out of their last three games to even equal Waterford? I don't think so. If you look at their running, they've got Athlone, Shamrock, Rovers, and Wexford. Talk about 3 games to finish off on, and it's just been a miserable enough season for Cork City, and like, it just hasn't worked. The loss of Ciara Senna mid-season, Frank Kelleher obviously stepping down due to health reasons. Things just haven't sort of, like, the season was nearly set up in a bad way when Danny Murphy left so late. And then you're bringing in a new manager, and granted, Frank tried to adapt the systems, tried to adapt, but it didn't work. From a Galway viewpoint, Jamie Eriksson, since coming back, has just been superb. I think Ceola Bergin is really starting to hit form right now. 2 goals in this game. Aoibheann Costello, 8 assists in three games is just ridiculous. It's definitely sort of player of the month sort of talk, and that's just quality from the Galway player. And I think Galway are showing us that they're still a top side. Like they're third place. They're more than likely going to finish third place in the league. I think they've had a really, really good season. They lost their All-Ireland Cup, but I think Phil Trill's side have been a great side to watch this year.
Absolutely. Speaking of individual team of the week selections, or the captain of this week's team of the week should be, in my opinion, Aoibheann. Despite defeat at the hands of Athlone in a game that Athlone needed to win to go back to the top of the table, DLR were impressive here. Scored early on and looked like they might hold on. Conceded, then still looked like they might hold on again. But it was 2 late goals kind of put all 3 points in the basket of Athlone Town, but like it wasn't for lack of trying, particularly from
I'm gonna call out a friend of the show.
Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble.
Maeve the Burker has robbed Aoibheann here. I just don't how Aoibheann hasn't won player of the match for me. I'm sorry. Listen, Maeve, we love you. You're great watching you, but for me, how Aoibheann hasn't won player of the match here, I'm shocked. She just save after save after save. Great header for cleaning it down. Ellen Molloy probably won't want to see it back, just with the run and with the way she sort of got that bit of space the back post. It was a lovely delivery in, and like even when that stage and Athlone are sort of pelting at them. Waves defense was resilient. It was strong. It was very, very good. When the goal comes, it's the flick on from Brady, and I think Gibson does well to finish, because I looked for a second it was probably going to go away from her, and then when the second and third goal are just real strikers, finish with the little flick from when the ball is in the corners. But I thought Brady was very good for them. Aoibheann had another great game. I think it's a massive win for Athlone. It's a great bounce back. The other side, I mentioned earlier on the show, we talked about the Champions League game. I think the crowd for this game was diabolical, and that's probably the best way to describe it. A team going for a league title in such a massive game. Have a crowd. There was a crowd. They say 284, but it didn't even look anywhere. It didn't even look anywhere near that. And for me, that's not great especially from an Athlone side looking to win the league. I think it's job done for Athlone in terms of that game. You walk away happy, but definitely some tired bodies in Athlone at the minute.
Yeah, but I think they've probably got enough in the legs. If they can get through this weekend, I think they'll do all right in terms of the league challenge. They're in pole position. They can actually afford to lose at the weekend and still be in pole position. It's not ideal, and they definitely won't be going out to do that, but they would like to wrap this up with a win in Talca Park at the weekend.
Yeah, a win pretty much near enough puts it that they have to drop points in 2 games. Granted, if they were to lose this game, it does make that game. I know they've Cork in the midweek, but it makes that Peamount game the following Saturday that little bit more spicy.
Yeah,
but I think from a Shels viewpoint, you're expecting a lot has to happen in order for Shels to be league champions. But then again, I hate to harp on about it. We never thought we'd see it happen a couple of years ago when Peamount needed 1 win out of the last 3 and didn't get it. So we've seen stranger things happen. I think this Athlone team is a lot better, and I don't think it will happen, but we have seen stranger things happen. I think this weekend is massive, but I would fancy Athlone to get something out of the game, even if it is a draw.
Absolutely. Some other big news off the field. We might just get stuck into that a little bit because there's a few little things we want to chat about. I'm going to just get some stuff out of the way. First of all, some really impressive news out of the FAI in terms of the completion of both the Changemakers program and the mentoring and coaching skills program. Some big names, probably, as I mentioned, about a dozen on each of the courses, roughly. Anya O'Donovan, a former Cork City player who has been coaching down in Cork with Bandon and Cork City. She's probably the standout name from a League of Ireland point of view. Although Sandra Myler, club secretary in Waterford FC, probably known around the league as well. Just I'm not familiar with her myself, but some impressive people who've kind of come through that program. But the one I'm more familiar with the participants on is the mentoring and coaching skills program. These both funded, of course, by the Irish. It's not called Sports Council anymore. It's Sport Ireland. Women in Sport program. A lot of the FAI staff and committee members, as well as a few other people from around the game. Marie Price Bulger, obviously well known to anyone who's been involved in the women's game for the last number of decades, really a former under 16 international manager, but she's been around for a long time. Michelle O'Neill and Paula Brady, two well-respected referees at UEFA and FIFA level. I'm not sure which of them went to the World Cup, if maybe Paula.
Michelle O'Neill went to the World. Michelle O'Neill went to multiple. She's also been involved in Champions League finals.
Yeah.
As I said to you even before, I had actually a nice chat with Paula Brady at the weekend. Sarah, especially with what she's doing now, Sarah games quite regularly. There's another yoke that wasn't necessarily publicised as much as well. There's a young leaders forum pilot that the FAI are also running in Tallaght Stadium. Like, there's a lot of good initiatives that's been running off the field, especially for football. And like, even when we talk about the main news that in terms of off the field for the positive this week, I think it's good to see more and more of these sort of things happening.
Yeah, as well. Two female participants on the 25-26 cohort for the UEFA Pro license, former international goalkeeper Marie Horan and Shauna.
Okay, Chelsea Noonan.
Yeah, Chelsea Noonan. Sorry, I don't know what I think Shauna.
And a shout out to former Athlone Town manager as well. Kieran Kilduff is also on the programme.
Yeah, so some pretty impressive faces on that across the FAI news of the week. We'll briefly touch on the government stuff during the week because we did a lot of it on it last week. So the FAI were invited to speak to the committee for sport tourism and whatever is responsible, their responsibilities are. And they had announced who was going to be going. And then everything kind of got a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a little bit hijacked. And very vocal in the media about an invite to members of the women's national team because of allegations made by Eileen Gleeson during her legal case against the FAI. So let's kind of sum it up here. Eileen Gleeson is currently employed by the FAI. There's a whole lot of redundancy discussion going on at the moment within the organization, a lot of restructuring. She has taken a case against the FAI for basically discrimination based on her gender. We're not going to get into that. It's a legal case. Too many pitfalls and nightmares there. But essentially, that is an ongoing case. And the government have invited Eileen to be part of a delegation with other FAI staff to investigate particular incidents of player protection, which I feel is an overstep on the government's part. I think the FAI have to come forward and say what's happening here, which of course they can't because it's been investigated by the Gardaí. I just think, given the personalities and the links of those personalities on that committee to members of the FAI or employees of the FAI, and most notably Alan Kelly's been very vocal, a Labour politician who has had John Delaney as a canvasser for him in the past. They seem to be good buddies. It all just has a little bit of political opportunism about it. Your thoughts?
I find it mad that the communications manager for the FAI, for the women's national team, was called in. The problem here is that, like, yes, you want transparency, you want these sort of things, but the other side of it as well is there's numerous ongoing Garda legal cases that are currently in process. And for me, when you look at Eileen Gleeson's situation, is if you bring Eileen Gleeson in there,
it's an absolute tinderbox.
It shouldn't be in there. If she's got a legal case in there regarding safeguarding, regarding any of that sort of stuff, she should not be in there. It should not be. It should be going through the legal process and through the judicial process. It should be going that way. For the FAI to turn around and say they feel a bit scapegoat, it's in that sort of situation.
Yeah, I don't normally agree with the FAI, but
I don't myself in this situation. But I do. I think it's it's a mental one to actually to turn around and say, okay, we want these people in as witnesses. I know by reading through the statements and stuff like that, it looked as though Gleeson was keen to do it, and she's been quoted by. There's a piece quoted in the Irish Times this evening by Gavin Cummesky where he sort of says she received. Gleeson says she receives a directive from the FAI and the culture director to explain that it would be wholly inappropriate for her to attend the committee. I think. At this stage, yes, it would. If she wasn't an FAI employee and they wanted to bring her in and ask questions about it, it's a different story. But while she's still an FAI employee with an ongoing legal case, it's probably one of these that it should be done at a later date.
Yeah, the argument I would be is while she's an employee, you're exactly right. While she's an employee, it's inappropriate to invite her. It's inappropriate for her to accept, even though she has told the committee she wants to be there but can't because the FAI have told her she can't be there. There is an option. I can't see her taking it, but she could resign from her position and go in and talk if she believed that strongly about the player welfare.
Yeah. Now, I hope
suicide, so it's not going to happen, but it would be a disaster for her if she was to do that. So personally,
I hope down the line she gets an opportunity to speak her mind when all things are resolved. She gets an opportunity to speak her mind, but as an FAI employee in this situation, it doesn't look good in a whole environment, especially if she's got a legal case on. I think sort out the other stuff in the background, start a relationship with the FAI, whether you're going to stay there long, whether the case is going to go, whatever happens, you're there, you're gone, whatever that sort of be. And then, because these committees aren't just going to turn around and stop these sort of things. And the interesting thing is, and you've sort of said to me about, overstepping boundaries, and you've mentioned these sort of things, and like, we know for a fact that the government will turn around and say, "Oh, let's just cut the funding. Let's just cut this."
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody the other day about this, and in terms of the likes of the League of Ireland Academy money that they're trying to get from the FAI. And what's being said to me is, if they get money from the FAI for the League of Ireland Academies, that they're looking at as part of any agreement, is that this money would potentially be ring-fenced, where it is not put directly into the FAI. Like we've seen it before, where we've seen with the women just before they got to the World Cup, there was a couple of 100,000 money put towards the women's team from the government, where it was done through BDO. So we could potentially see something like that down the lines, where if they don't, it's a messy situation across the entire board with the FAI at the minute, and it's. Do you know what? I'm going to say this, and it's the last thing I'm going to say on this tonight. I'm glad that we're going to have a conversation about something positive in terms of.
You took the words out of my mouth. Let's talk positive. From the FAI, directive came out during the week, and it's exciting. We've talked on this we've talked on the show for years about catering for that hidden group of girls who don't have a real platform at the moment, from the age of 19 when they age out of the under 19 grade and can't quite break into a first team squad. The junior structures aren't quite there. This kind of ticks all of the boxes that we've been giving out about for a while. Essentially, the under 19 grade will be no more. It will become an under 23/development league. And what that means in practice is, for the teams, I think there's 20 teams in the division. So 22 teams in the division. So for the 12 who are under, or the first teams are in the women's Premier Division, it will become an under 23 side. So it allows you to cater for a bigger group of players than at the moment. And these under 19s who can't quite break in get a chance to play at a slightly higher level. That's
so
over.
I've asked a couple of questions. There's a lot of questions around this from me, in terms of, I've asked the question and it sort of hasn't been necessarily fully clarified yet. Are the 10 clubs who are coming, are they bound to have 23s, or can they have can the senior teams play?
My understanding, reading it, and I'm open to correction, is that they are allowed play, no limits. So essentially, they can go and recruit a whole first team and play. There's no promotion as it stands. I expect that to change in season 2, but it means that
the other thing that I seen there was, and I asked this question, is, at the minute in the under 19s league, you can play a certain amount of overage players. I asked this question: are the likes of a Shels, Bows, Athlone, them sort of teams going to be allowed to have a couple, like if someone's coming back from injury? It hasn't necessarily been clarified yet. I don't think promotion in League 2 and in season 2 is the right time. I think we need a couple of years before they have promotion in
No,
this league.
I disagree. I think you can't expect. I mean, we run through the 10 teams. They are, as it happens, Drogheda, Dundalk, Finn Harps, Longford, Mayo, Kerry, Cove Ramblers, CK United, and Bray Wanderers. They will essentially have first teams. You can't expect those clubs to invest in a team where there's no route to the top table. I'd like to see a playoff structure, and I'd like to see it where the bottom side and only the bottom side in the top division plays against maybe the top teams in each of the groups, group 1 and group 2, if they are not second teams. So if you don't finish top of your group, you're not in it. If you're a second team in the group, you're not in it either.
My only concern over that is that, like, if we were to lose a Premier Division team to be relegated after, say, year 2, you're talking them potentially losing an under 23s team because they're not going to feel the 23s and so I think there's a fine balance in that. The one thing I will say that I really, really, really like out of this is the fact that the 10 teams that enter this under 23s team that aren't senior teams go into the FAI Cup. I know it's going to mean there's a lot more happening around the non-league teams entering the cup, and the permutations of the cup will have to be done. But it just means that it's sort of it's an opportunity. Like, it's an opportunity to build the first division without forcing the first division down people's neck and saying we need the first division now. It's an opportunity to have the correct stepping stone. Where probably in a couple of years' time, we'll see them 12 League of Ireland teams step away and probably into either their own under 23 league with the other teams who were there having an under 23s team and then having a proper 23s league or having a restructure of the under.
I think that's where we're going to end up essentially with this is I think the structure probably speaks for itself. Currently you have 4 teams. The 4 amateur semi-finalists qualify for the first round of the FAI Cup. And I think we'll continue to see that. And I think it bridges that gap where we've seen that huge gulf between the standards of the two sides. It's very simple in my head. You've got 10 teams in that lower division. You bring in 4, you play it off to 4 teams. So you maybe have 2 rounds where it's just confined to those teams, a couple of buys in the first round, 7 games. Then you play 3 games, you end up with 4 teams, and those 4 teams go and play the top 12 in the last 16 of the FAI Cup. So the top FAI or the top League of Ireland teams would come in round 3, but it would mean that that would
you potentially see a scalp. You might see a scalp, and that's the sort of thing. But like for me, like my questions on that.
Sorry, my preferred. Sorry to cut across you, but my preferred route would be that we have a season or 2, maybe even 3, as these girls get older. So the girls who are 19s now, or maybe even last season's 19s, might be brought back into the league. You have to remember the likes of Roisin Molloy didn't play in 19s for a year. I think she went to play in the Mayo League and then went to Athlone after aging out of under 17s with Sligo Rovers. So it's not unusual for these players to come back in after a year at that age group, but they don't really fall off the wagon that quickly if they're interested. But I think I'd love to see a second tier, maybe dropping 2 Premier Division teams in with those 10 and ended up having a Premier Division of 10 and a First Division of 12 might be the route forward, and then having a relegation and promotion battle between those 2 divisions.
Yeah, like I think I do you know what? The one thing that I'm happy about this, right, is we seen Cove Ramblers tweeting earlier on the year about wanting to join the Women's Premier Division. And we sort of thought, like, we're not ready to see another team step straight into the Women's Premier Division. We're not ready for that. We're not ready to see another 2 or 3 teams just step up and all of a sudden make it a 14, 16 team league. The league isn't as competitive enough to have that. And I think this is the option that it bridges a lot of these gaps. It bridges a lot of these things that maybe we wanted to see. Could you, like, I was only saying to someone in Talca the other day, could you imagine you see Athlone Town or you see Shamrock Rovers or you see Shels or Bows going to Kerry in the first round of the FAI Cup?
Yeah,
as a great, unbelievable, brilliant.
Sligo Rovers men found out it could be a bit of a banana skin as well, even despite being 3-0 up with half an hour to go. But I think
it's great, and I think it's a sort of thing that's like, you know, we spoke to I can't think of a second. Damien, I can't think of a second name involved with Kerry when there was talk about them coming into the women's. Is Damien Lockery? We were talking to former Wexford manager.
I don't know.
I'll get his name now. But like when we talked about Kerry coming in to the women's, Damien Locke.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. We spoke to him about Kerry coming into the women's under, like things like that are positive, and it gives this sort of option. And I think the fact that like the development teams will play knockout stage, there'll be development league final to see an overall winner. Like there's so much there that's sort of being like, okay, let's pull this in. But the other side of it as well is we talk about, female sports, and we talk a lot about female sports and female opportunities. This gives them more opportunities for female managers, female referees, young male referees, young male managers who think, okay, it's a great opportunity to get involved in the women's game. The women's game has grown and grown and grown. Like, I know there's questions that have been raised over this in the sense of, what about players when they finish that gap from 17 to 19 when no one under 19s? How things like that are overcome is good coaching, good structures in clubs helps you to avoid, because I speak to clubs, and the one thing I get from clubs is that they say to me, when a young kid who's 16, 17, who's really, really good, comes in to train with the first team and does a bit of training with the first team, the standards are higher, things are higher. They see the sort of improvements that they make. And I think these sort of things with the right cultures, right relationships, right structures, I think that's where you bridge that gap to the concerns over what about these players. Like the best thing for me is, and this is what was said to me on Saturday, is there's a player in Shels, and I can't think of her name. She's missed the entire under 19s. She's missed the last 2 years through injury. Will be completely out of 19s football now.
Yeah.
But now has an option to play for another couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that we need to be looking at. It's not looking at it's short-sighted. It's not. It's about bridging the gap for getting a more competitive the Premier Division and the second tier, but it's also about giving players for 4 years more can play underage football, and that's the thing that's going to help grow, especially if a young player gets a long-term injury and they all of a sudden they drop out because they're like, I can't play 19s anymore. I've now got an option.
There is one other area I think I'd like to see involved at this age group in particular, and I think you know what I'm going to say, aren't you?
Colleges.
Oh, of course. It's like we under 23s. It's absolutely made for the universities to come in. They've got the facilities. They've got partly the budgets. They've got definitely if it's an amateur league, if it's tier 2 amateur league, and I think we could see the WSCAI, which is the colleges stuff. I was a huge proponent of that for years, heavily involved, coached the Leinster Colleges team, was secretary and I think treasurer of the WSCAI at various stages. I'd love to see those teams. When I started in college, and I'm not saying when, but it was not in this millennium, those girls played week in, week out in a league. They played Saturdays in college, and it was a big commitment. You played club football essentially with the colleges league. It was its own standalone league. Aoife Kelly's dad, Miles, was heavily involved in it at the time.
Is he involved with Carlo IT still?
Oh, he would be.
Or FC,
yeah, that's his
whatever
day.
It's called now.
Yeah. But SETI, I think it's called. But Setu maybe. But he was heavily involved. There was others, Fran O'Regan in Sligo, Aoibheann in Shakor. There was so many of them that really helped drive that on, as well as Etna and Paula Fitzell and others. And they did a Trojan work keeping that league as probably the best standard of football in the country at the time. There was no national league at the time. Most of those girls were involved in international squads. And I think there's an opportunity there to really see not just 22 teams, but you could be looking at 30 teams at this level.
Considering its group stages, it's split.
Yep.
It's split across the board. Absolutely, you can add a couple of more teams. Although I am going to be a bit of a downer on you. And I will say my only concern over colleges coming into this sort of environment is the fact that unless they've got a correct scholarship program, summer football can be a killer. And that's where they need to.
I'll go back to, again, my involvement with UCD back in the day.
But it could work.
The right program, it works. The inattentive program, it doesn't. But I'd love to see the opportunity there to grow everything.
UCD AFC have shown in the men's that with the right program, you can have a League of Ireland team. So if a women's college wants to get involved, I think now is probably the opportunity where you have that chance. Maybe we might see another Galway team in with Billy Cleary at the helm or something.
I think Billy's long gone from Galway at this stage. But
we can convince him to go back.
In terms of the whole situation, it's just exciting to see 10 new teams at the top table of Irish football. And I like the way I honestly say it's a masterstroke by the FAI. We give them an awful lot of slagging on this program, and rightly so at times. But I have to say they've got this one right. And teams haven't necessarily been given the option to opt out, which is even better. You're not waiting for them to go, yeah, we'll put our hand up to take part in that. It's essentially the same cost as what's been going on at the moment. It just gives all of those teams the opportunity to get involved.
The other side of it is there's a pot of money that's sitting there that if they don't use it, UEFA will say, thank you very much, we'll give this to something else. Yeah. So there was a money there that was putting funding in place that's there for this sort of implementing a second tier. So this is it's good to see that they're using available resources. They're utilizing available resources. I've got a question.
Who's your money on to win the first season?
Oh,
got you now.
That's difficult. Probably not Clone or Bows.
Go for a second team.
I've got one concern. Okay. And not a concern, but I've got one question, and this is something that we'll find out over time, is now that they're sort of bringing this in as a development team where they're showcasing that we're going to have more teams who are coming into things, does this mean that we're potentially going to see, it doesn't have to be all of them, are we going to see a cherry picked or a selection of these games then become available on things like LOI TV, especially as they look to showcase this league, as they look to sort of grow this sort of platform? It'd be interesting to see.
I wouldn't be holding my breath, unfortunately. I just think women's sport gets pushed so far down unless there's UEFA funding specifically for that, I don't think that'll happen. It's just too big. We see how the girls in the Premier Division struggle at times to deliver that, and we've seen players doing commentaries or even nobody doing commentaries or no commentaries or no streams at all. So I just think I'd rather get the football right, and the promotion will go. I do think it needs, for jeopardy at the bottom of the Premier Division, there needs to be some element of risk. I don't envisage automatic relegation, but there should, in my opinion, be a winner and a runner-up in the lower tier, and they flip. So the winner plays 10th or 12th, and the runner-up plays 11th. And if either of them are good enough to win that game, or a little round-robin competition, but that's probably 3 weeks games. If either of them are good enough to win that competition, they deserve to go into the Premier Division. That's my take. It might take an establishment of a proper second tier with those 10 teams to make that happen. But I think we need jeopardy at the bottom of the Premier Division.
I think the fact that the FAI have come out and said promotion/relegation will not take place in the inaugural season, but we will review that at a later date. I think that key statement coming out with that straight away is really important, because it's coming out and saying that we are fully aware that we need to have something, and we're not going to do it in the inaugural season, but we are looking at it, and that sort of tells you that it's not just turning around and saying. Because I think that would sort of be another side of it, in the sense of being like, okay, just turn around and say nothing about that and just leave it. I think that's an important line in the statement, just because it sort of highlights that they recognise that the need for something like that is going to be required over time.
Let's talk before we wrap up, and we are getting out of this because we said we would go under the hour. We're well past the hour now again.
Oh, I need to ask that question.
Oh yeah, go on. Sorry.
Peamount United in the under-9 in this sort of environment. Is it going to be a step too far, building two competitive teams in this level? Could we see that's where they suffer?
Based on their performances in the league this year, under 17, under 19 levels, I'm just having a quick glance here now, because I know I did look at it a couple of weeks ago and it wasn't phenomenal. I'd be worried for their ability to pull that off. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for them.
Well, likewise, I see big challenges for Cork, the likes of Cork City as well. I see challenges for clubs down the country. And the thing about it is in terms of women's football, it's either you're going to adapt and you find a way, or you'll get left behind, unfortunately.
Well, I think the players are there. It's just a matter of whether the structures around the players, the coaching, the facilities and stuff. But they're there for the under-19s already, so that stuff shouldn't be a major problem. Let's talk about the fixtures at the weekend because I want to wrap up the show. People are sick of listening to us at this stage.
Well, we're not sure we're happening in recent weeks, so we've done in 2 minutes. Let me happen.
The big game of the weekend, obviously, is Shels versus Athlone, with an honourable mention maybe for Wexford and Galway. Your thoughts going into those games?
Peamount treat as well.
Listen, every game is good at this point, but those two kind of stand out in terms of they're essentially the top four sides in the league. Well, no, they are the top four sides in the league playing each other.
Yeah.
Wexford, Galway, not really in the title shake-up at this stage, but can Shels throw a spanner in the works and make this go to the last day of the season?
I like the cabinets available. You will say an awful lot, but I think bringing Rowan McLaughlin back is key for them. I think if Shels can put the performance that they put in on Saturday, yes, they can. Am I convinced that they will put that performance in? Not necessarily. I wouldn't be surprised this game ends in a draw.
Which, of course, is Athlone pretty much.
But the other side of it for me is, rather than the actual scoreline and end scoreline, there's a second subplot in this game as well, with the fact that Kelly Brady is 1 goal behind Mackenzie Anthony in the Golden Boot race. Mackenzie Anthony has played a game extra, so it's going to be an interesting who finishes that Golden Boot. I said to you at the start of the year, I thought Kate Mooney would get 18. Kenzie Anthony's on 16. Brady's on 15. I wouldn't be so shocked if the winner finishes still 18, 19.
Yeah, which is the best we've had in a long few years. Yeah. Let's just take a quick look.
Before I do that, Kate Mooney had her ACL surgery last week, so I wish Kate a healthy and speedy recovery.
Absolutely, from all of us as well on that one. Let's take just a quick look at the league table before we wrap up the show. Athlone, that 1 point clear of Shels with 1 game in hand. They do play each other. Of course, 22 is the magic number. That is the number of games every team will play this particular season. So Shels need a victory to keep their hopes alive going into the last 2 games of the season for them. Galway and Wexford.
Look at goals the Shels have scored this season.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. 63 goals in 19 games. It's been really, really impressive. But then look how few Athlone have conceded is even more impressive this year. They haven't lost a game.
But if you look at the goals Athlone have actually conceded over the last probably 5 games. Majority of them probably come in the last 5 games.
Absolutely.
So they conceded one to DLR. They did what? 2 did one against Shels and a couple against Galway, Bows. So I think from a league point of view, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, as we move down, Treaty United, they're just edging that 5th place battle at the moment. They could still realistically catch Wexford, but would need a result this weekend against Peamount to do that. Bows currently 2 points behind Treaty, with Peamount 1 point further behind and a point back to Shamrock Rovers as well in that 8th place. You predicted 7th at the start of the season, Aaron. We'll chat about that before the end of the season. There's a big gap then back to the bottom 4, kind of a ladder here, 3 points separating most of these teams. DLR 3 points ahead of Sligo, who themselves 3 points ahead of Waterford, with Cork City propping up the bottom of the table, 8 points from their 19 games in what we've already discussed as a season almost to be written off for them. Anything else before we wrap up for the evening, Aaron?
If you can get to a game this weekend, get one. As Bethany said, there's so many different permutations, games, mini battles, stuff like that. Shels Athlone, obviously live on TG Car, but every other game live on LOI TV, and go enjoy it. Football will be over pretty soon, and we'll be asking when is it coming back. So enjoy them last couple of weeks.
Absolutely, get out to a game and support whoever you follow in the league. Or if you want to get to if you're a neutral and you want to get out to a game, I can't recommend Shels and Athlone highly enough. It's going to be one of the games of the season, so do get out to that. Aaron, that's it for this week. We're still way past the hour, and we're going to have to fine you now for every time you keep us talking longer than the hour. This is me, who's probably responsible for it more than yourself. It's been a great show. Thank you very much for to Aaron for that. Also, if you've been with us this far, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're Fine Whistle IE across most platforms. Aaron is the WNL show for all his women's football content over the course of the the season as it goes. We love having you. We'll be back again next week to talk all things of next week's games. We shall chat to you then. Talk to you then.